to preach from the subject, hope again. Hope again. And I don't know what I'm speaking to in your life. It might be hoping with respect to people. It might be hoping with respect to a job. It might be hoping with respect to your own spiritual journey. But I want to urge you to hope again. Can you say that with me? Say hope again. Hope again. Yeah, hope again. Hope again. You and I as human beings, we can live 40 days without food, 3 days without water, 8 minutes without air, but not 1 second without hope. You may exist without hope, but I assure you, you're not really living. In the movie Castaway, Tom Hanks plays Chuck Nolan, and it's a movie about hope. Nolan is a FedEx executive who gets in a plane crash, and he's the only survivor of the crash. The plane goes down in the ocean near this remote tropical island. Nolan is carried to the shore, and there on that island, he stays all by himself for 4 years. Some of you remember this movie. His only companion on that tropical remote island was Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson was a Wilson basketball on whom he painted the image of a face. And he would talk to Mr. Wilson. That's his only companion for 4 years. Months turned into years, and Nolan became increasingly suicidal. Increasingly, his hope for life slipped away. And just as he was about to throw in the towel, just when he was about to give up on life, this large piece of metal drifted onto the beach. And that metal gave him a reason to hope again. He took that metal, made a raft, and launched out into the sea. After several days on the sea, this huge ship came by him and rescued him. Finally, he's on his way home. Now, you would think the story ends happily ever after, that everything is great. We all leave the theater smiling. But he gets home only to have his world destroyed all over again. After all, he's been gone for 4 years. He gets home to discover that his wife has recently remarried. You can't blame her. She thought he was dead. She thought he was never coming home. And so, discouraged and disappointed, the movie ends with him sitting at an intersection in his car on this deserted road. At least it looked fairly deserted. And you can tell what's going on. He's trying to figure out which way to go now. And then, out of nowhere, this young, attractive woman walks in front of the car and gives him the eye. The attraction was palpable. And you know, he doesn't know where to go, but that woman being attracted to him gave him a whole nother reason to hope again. This is what I'm trying to say, friend. I don't know how fractured and broken your life is right now, but if you look real good, you'll find a reason to hope again. Oh yeah, you may have to wipe the tears from your eyes to see clearly. You may have to pick your head up to see it, but I guarantee you there is a reason to hope again. And it's not a piece of metal, and it's not a piece of flesh, but the reason you can hope again is because of God. In this text, Isaiah says that the greatest reason for our hope is God, because God is who he is. There is never a hopeless situation. Whatever you do, friend, don't give up until you look up. God says, I'm your greatest reason to hope again. Now, let me tell you what Isaiah is doing here. Isaiah is prophetically preaching about hope. He looks into the future with the inspiration of the Spirit, and he sees that the people of God one day, 100 years from his time, would be stuck in a place they didn't want to be. They would be defeated and they would be deported to Babylon. While in Babylon, they would be tempted to give up hope. And so God says, I don't want you to just tell them that they're going to go through a crisis that they didn't anticipate. I don't want you to just tell them they're going to be stuck in a place they don't want to be. Now that you know what's going to happen, give them a message that they will listen to when they get there. And he gives them this sermon on hope before they even need it. And for somebody here today, I want you to know that was 100 years ago. That was 100 years before they went into captivity that Isaiah gave the message. And it was more than a millennium ago when this message was given. But the message about hope is still as relevant as today's newspaper. God is your greatest reason to hope again. You see, somebody here, you're waiting for something in this life to give you hope. God says, I'm in this life too. And not only am I in this life, I'm already in your future. I am your greatest reason to hope again. Friend, you can hope again, not because you got a new attitude, not because you got a new relationship, not because you got a new hairdo, not because you got a new job, not because you're about to graduate from college. Your greatest reason to hope again is the same reason why you had to hope on yesterday. It's God. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. Stop asking God for something other than himself. God says, I'm your reason to hope again. Because if I give you the job, you still may lose it. If I give you the relationship, it may not turn out to be what you want it to be. But I am your reason to hope again. I am your God, and I change none. Do you know what God is really trying to do in your life? He's trying to get you to the place where you want him. That's what God is trying to do. That's why you're going through what you're going through. He's trying to get you to the place to where you realize that what you really need is him. He is your hope. And everything else is optional. Okay, all right. I'm in the Bible. Let me prove it to you. Isaiah says this, you can hope again, and this is the message here. This is what I want to say. You can hope again because God is aware. Say aware. Aware. Like a good father, like a good mother, God never takes his eyes off of you. He never takes his eyes off of his children. He is fully aware of your despair. Can you imagine these people being stuck in a foreign place? They're experiencing something they never envisioned when they were going to college or going to school. They're thinking that God must not know what's going on. And God says, I see you. He says in verse 27, don't complain to the Lord, saying to me, my way is hidden from the Lord. Friend, I want you to know, God knows what's happening in your life. God is not blind to what is going on in your life. You couldn't play hide and seek with God if you wanted to. He sees through every barrier, and darkness is as bright as the noonday sun to him. God had night vision before the military did. Friend, you couldn't play hide and seek with God if you wanted to. When you don't want God to see you, he sees you. And God says, don't think that I don't see what you are going through. Now understand, this is the beginning of hopelessness. Hopelessness is rooted in this idea that God is losing his vision. That God can't see you, that God is not aware of you. You know how it is when we're not giving our children enough attention. They get louder. They start jumping up and down in front of us. Listen, God says you don't have to do all that jumping. You don't have to do all that shouting. You don't have to make all that noise. I'm looking at you right now. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere. God says, I see you. Stop telling yourself that God can't see. That's a human notion of God. God says, not only do I see you, but I feel you. Not only am I aware of your despair, I'm aware of how discouraged you are. I see what's happening, but I also see how what's happening is hurting you. I see what's up, and I see how what's up is pulling you down. He says, don't complain to the Lord, saying my way is disregarded by God. In other words, don't go to God saying that, God, you must not care about me like you care about other people. You must be ignoring me. Don't say to the Lord, my way is disregarded by God. God says, I feel you. And not only do I feel you, when you cry, I cry. When you hurt, I hurt. You can hope again because I see you and I feel you. And understand this, friends. If God feels whatever he feels when he feels it much more deeply than you do. Because God is an infinite God, and everything he does and he experiences it in infinite ways. God understands the pathways of your emotions better than you do. God says, don't say to yourself, stop saying to yourself when you lay on that bed at night that, God, you must not care about me. God, you must not love me. God, you must not see me. God says, I see you. And I love you, and I feel you, and I'm crying with you, and I'm hurting with you. I'm not blind. But now here's the question that emanates from that. The question is, well, God, if you see it and you feel it, why aren't you changing it? That is. See, that's what you were thinking about. God, why aren't you changing it? Because it hurt, God, it hurt. Friend, I want to suggest to you that God knows something you don't know. The very thing that you're praying for, God knows you're not ready for. Are you listening to what I'm saying? God knows this, and this may not be true for everybody, but it's true for about 22 people in the room. 22. That's what God said. It's 22. Listen. The very thing that you are praying for, God knows something that you don't know. Either you're not ready for it or it's not ready for you. Yeah. And so that's what it is. God says, I'm not going to give you something that's not ready for you. And I'm not going to give you something if you're not ready for it. Because I'm a good father and I bring you into what you are prepared to enjoy and experience. Here's what I've learned about believers too. A lot of times our prayers are centered around getting God to replace himself in our lives. we really want a life where prayer is just optional, you know. God says, you're trying to use me to replace me. And I'm not going to be replaced in your life. Worship the Lord and serve him only. This is the mission of God. God says, we got to get together on this thing. You trying to use me, and I'm here to use you. I just messed about 27 people up right there. You're like, really? Yeah, God wants to use you. The guillemot is a bird that lives in the rocky cliffs of the North Pole, on the north side, on the coastal regions. And this bird is unique in that they flock together by the thousands in relatively small areas. And when they flock together and the female birds lay their eggs, because they are in these crowded conditions, they lay their eggs in a row, usually on a ledge, and all of them look alike. They all are pear-shaped and look alike. And one of the fascinating things about the eggs that are laid there is that scientists have always wondered, how in the world do these mothers, or if they know which specific set of eggs belong to them? And they actually did extensive research on this, and they discovered that even though all the eggs are packed together, that they know, these mothers know, not only which egg belongs to them, they meticulously care for the eggs. And when the eggs are moved by anyone or anything, they will immediately swoop in and take the egg and place it in its proper position, the position it was before. It's an amazing thing, but that's the meticulous care of a mother. And God is saying to somebody today, it looks like when you see all of these people in the world, you might be tempted to think that I can't see you. When you recognize all of the people vying for my attention, you may wonder, how is it that I'm able to keep my eyes and my attention on you? God says, I am so much God that I can spot you in the crowd. I see you. I feel you. I love you. I'm aware of your despair. Somebody in this room, you stop telling yourself that God doesn't care about you like he cares about other people. Stop telling yourself that God must not see what I'm going through. God, he has eyes, and his eyes range throughout the earth. He sees everything. He watches over the way of the righteous. He's aware of your despair. Here's the next one. You can hope again because he's able. He's able to deliver. He's able to deliver you from your despair. One of the reasons why we misplace hope is because of the fact we forget who God is. Have your children ever asked you a question that was so ridiculous that you just had to look at them and say, do you know who I am? And sometimes I bet God just is up there thinking to himself, do you really know who I am? Do you really know what level of talent I bring to any situation you have? I am God. And friend, when we lose a vision of who God is, that is the entryway to hopelessness. Isaiah reminds us that our adversity does not change God's ability. I don't really know why this happens, but it's something about the human in us that whenever we are going through something, we think God must be going through it with us. Have you ever thought about that? Whenever you feel weak, doesn't it seem like God all of a sudden got weaker? When we're going through a trial, we wonder if God has somehow misplaced his talent for the supernatural. Friend, I got a news flash for you, and it's a news flash for all of us, really, because we're all tempted to project our weaknesses upon God. Just because you lost your joy, it does not mean that God lost his power. Your adversity has not changed God's ability. God is still as much God as he was when everything was going perfect in your little life. God says, I'm still God. And he gives us some specifics. He said, I'm still all God. I'm as much God as I was on yesterday as I am today. I'm still as much God today as I was on yesterday. He says in the text, he said, do you not know, have you not heard that the Lord is the everlasting God? He says, I'm still in charge. I still have authority. I'm the everlasting God. God has not resigned since you went through a trial. God doesn't have any term limits on his rulership. God has not stepped down. He is from everlasting to everlasting, the God of the universe. He's got just as much authority today as he had on yesterday. He says, I'm still all God. But he also says, I'm the creator of the ends of the earth. And what he's saying is that even in the most remote regions of the earth that are only moderately populated, I'm God over there too. I'm not just God over the populated regions. I'm God in the remote regions, even to the distant places of the earth. And when we get into a place of heart and a place of soul where we haven't been before, sometimes we're tempted to wonder, God, are you Lord over this place too? And God says, I'm God over every place that you step, every place that your soul enters into. I am the God of the ends of the earth. They know it. You say, how do they know it? They know it because the Bible says that the Spirit is placed within them.